Welcome to episode 6 of PeachTEA. We have John Hibbard with us today. He is the Deputy Chief Engineer at Georgia Department of Transportation. He has been in the industry for over 30 years. He helps drive innovation, operations, and strategic direction across the department. In today's episode, we'll dive into how various teams across GDOT collaborate, how data, planning, and real-world operations shape the future. And really, we'll talk about what's next for transportation in Georgia. John, happy to have you with us today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad for the chance to talk a little bit about the department and what we're doing around here these days.
So to start with, could you talk to us about what is your current role? What does a day-to-day look like as a Deputy Chief Engineer?
Sure. As Deputy Chief Engineer, I report to the Chief Engineer, and the way that we function, I have several of the department's divisions, that's the terminology we use, that are part of my portfolio. Specifically, one of them is operations, which is the role that I was in previously. I was the director of the operations division. Operations includes traffic operations, to speak heavily to this crowd, but it also includes the state maintenance office and state utilities office and the Office of Transportation Data. But then I also have the engineering division, and engineering includes roadway design and bridge design and right-of-way and environmental, Office of Environmental Services, which has such a presence in most any project that we do. And then the third division is the intermodal division. And intermodal is fascinating to me because it includes aviation and transit and rail and waterways. And so that to me is a fascinating suite of things that I now get to be a part of that conversation. We're fortunate because in all of those divisions, the department has really good, high-quality leaders in all of them that have a lot of experience, and they themselves are recognized in their industries as being experts and nationally known experts, and that's great for them. It's great for me selfishly, but it's great for the department and frankly, ultimately for the people in Georgia, so that they can have the confidence that we are truly making the best decisions, the best moves possible for benefit of everybody.
I'm jumping a little ahead of myself, but from what you know, being involved in all these committees at a national level, is there anything like policy related, anything that's upcoming, that's new, that engineers should be aware of?
Probably, yes. One of the committees that I'm on is something that we call casually the National Committee, and that's the National Committee on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is a group that edits and provides input to federal highways on the MUTCD. And that's an ongoing effort. We meet twice a year. Let's see here, we are May, and so the next meeting is in late June, and it will be in Mobile, Alabama. There's a June meeting, and there's a January meeting. The January meeting is always in Washington, D.C. And so that group is continuing its review and evaluation of candidate new material that might find its way into an upcoming MUTCD, because we always need to be prepared for that next new manual that might come. They relatively recently just issued a revision to the current MUTCD, but that revision predominantly was intended to correct errors, error correction only. And so really you don't find new material in that revision. It is focused, the new and changed text is focused on fixing things, clarifying things. But one thing that I think the industry is very interested in, really two things that the industry is interested in. One of them is an ongoing desire for legislation about autonomous vehicles. And the Congress continues to wrestle with how best to respond to that. And we're all very curious about that, especially, here we are in Georgia specifically, And it's, if you're in Atlanta, city of, Midtown Atlanta, like that, you see autonomous vehicles, Waymos and May Mobilities and others that are buzzing around town with remarkable frequency. There really is not a national framework, national legislation that exists concerning that. So that is certainly a topic of interest in our world, in our field. Also, and certainly this is a big deal for state governments, Georgia DOT notably, is what we call reauthorization. And that is to occur this year, desirably, and that's when the federal funding for transportation, when the current bill that is in place, and that current bill has been called casually IIJA or the BIL, depending on who you might be, but they both are both of those acronyms speak to the same thing, and so that bill times out, ends later this year. And so desirably, it would be great if there was a new bill passed that would pick up the baton, in a sense, from the IIJA and set the stage for transportation funding for the next several years. If that doesn't happen this year, we would be in a situation of continuing resolutions to simply extend the existing funding scheme forward for some fixed amount of time until the reauthorization could occur. There is interest in getting reauthorization accomplished this year. And from our perspective, from a DOT perspective, that would be a really good thing if it did happen, because then it would provide all states with surety, with some confidence that, okay, we know what the federal funding picture looks like, and that would let us do a better job of planning for these next several years.
Okay. Now, that's very interesting. As you were speaking about like autonomous vehicles, a thought that came to my mind. How do you think that will change, like with more autonomous vehicles, more connected vehicles, how do you think that will change, be it design policy or like specifications? Do you anticipate something in that area?
We are very interested in learning of those sorts of impacts, while at the same time, I'm not sure that we will see much of a need for that, because that industry that is making or working to create those sorts of vehicles, their view of our road network, road system, or their view of their role in it is that they need to be able to travel, their vehicles need to be able to accomplish their travels on the existing road network as it is. And so I don't know that I expect that industry to, so to speak, raise their hand and say, hey, would you change this? Would you do that? One thing that we did contemplate, and this goes back really to the National Committee and the MUTCD, was concerning striping along interstates at interstate exits, to try to provide better guidance to vehicles that might have some sort of automated lane keeping functionality. Automated lane keeping is not autonomous in and of itself. It, to me, is a feature, or it is functionality that is along that path towards increased automation and towards increased autonomy. And so that has happened, and but even that is potentially of benefit to the current not yet autonomous vehicles. And I would argue that generally the sorts of things that we might contemplate to improve the roadway for autonomous vehicles likely would be similarly beneficial to good old human drivers too, beneficial for all.
Okay. So I got a great question from Paul as we were getting things set up. So it was about, so Georgia is a leader in transportation. So was there, like, ever since like the DOT started, from your knowledge, was there a shift? Was it like after Olympics or something? ever since I started working, Georgia has always been the leader. So wanted to know from your history.
I'll offer my experience, and note, I've only been here at the department 11 years. Spent much of my time in the private sector. But as I started with the department, Commissioner McMurray had just been named the commissioner at that point, and his comment at that time was that he thought that Georgia DOT should be, quote, simply the best. And that was, for me personally, that was a wonderful piece of information to get, or goal to have set before me, because I already had some knowledge, about traffic ops specifically. And I knew that traffic ops was doing good things. And from my consulting background, and I was fortunate in that role, that my work took me pretty much coast to coast. And so I had a sense of what other agencies were doing, or maybe not doing, all at the same time. And it sure seemed to me that Georgia was in a strong position already. And so my conclusion, after hearing the commissioner's goal stated, was that Georgia is probably pretty close to being the best. The challenge, and this is a challenge for so many of us that are in this engineering and in technical spaces, is that we do good work, but we're not really good about telling people that we are doing good work. Mm-hmm. And some of it's modesty and just a reluctance, a reticence to speak out too boldly about what we might be up to. And so I thought, as much as anything, that the department needs to, quote, do more or better to be the best. We need to do a better job of telling people that we're doing these good things. We're really fortunate that we have a very strong communications department. A guy named Scott Higley is the head of that division. And Scott does a wonderful job of getting our good works out there and published and presented in a good light. And that's tremendous to be able to lean on Scott and his staff to say, hey, we've done this thing, or our folks have received this award. Is there an opportunity for us to make that more known more broadly? Mm-hmm. And Scott is great. Scott and his staff are great to help us do that, and so that helps paint us in a good light.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. I'll get to the hot topic. I want to get your thoughts on data and AI, and what is GDOT doing in that world. I just want to hear your thoughts and go from there.
Sure. And AI very quick. Anytime I talk about AI, mm-hmm. the conversation ends up kind of going in a direction of data. It's hard to talk about one and not get to the other. The department is getting into AI, and how we're doing that is at what I would say is both a high level and a low level, very specifically. The high level is we developed a policy statement, and I know that sounds pretty dry, but we needed it because people have such differing opinions and views on AI, and some of those opinions and views are really optimistic, and some of them, well, are perhaps less so. And so we thought we needed that high-level statement about us and where we stand on it, and the fact that we acknowledge that it exists and we're supportive of it, that we encourage its use internally, but though that anything that we produce, whether that's a set of plans or an email back to somebody that might have asked us a question, or anything in between, I don't care how it is developed, how our product is developed, ultimately it's ours and we have to own it. And so if we use AI to help develop that product, well, okay, that's fine. But as soon as we deliver it or build it or hit send on it, it's ours. And we have to acknowledge that. So that's a part of that, part of our world of AI. Also a part is recognizing that within our world of the data that we have some data that is sensitive. And we need to recognize that and acknowledge it, and that we are committed to ensuring that the private stuff stays private, but at the same time that we are transparent in what we're doing. So, okay, that's high-level talk. At a lower level, we've got several different pilots that are underway. And the good news is, generally, they've been successful. The common thing that cuts across all of them is, and other ideas that are being talked about and that are in various stages of development, is that generally all we're trying to do is get better insights into the data that we already have. We know that we have lots of data, lots of, I mean, I'm talking millions of files. But we struggle to get useful information out of all of that to help us, to guide us in making decisions about what might be the project or the matter at hand right now. And so when people are coming to us contemplating or proposing some AI-based solution, frequently, odds are, it's helping us gain better understanding as we look at our own data. One of our first pilots still ends up being a very instructive one, even as it's been rolled out and it's in use. And it concerned our TMC operators. And one of the challenges that they face is when the incident that they are being confronted with is complicated and perhaps is not as typical, as ordinary as they might typically see, that they would typically be confronted with their SOPs, the Standard Operating Procedures, which, as it currently sits, is over 600 pages long. It's a bunch of PDFs.
Can't find what
It's not organized. When somebody needs to add something, or when somebody deems that something is worth being added to the SOPs, it's just page number 601. It's not fit into that. So that AI tool, again, is just reaching into those 600 plus pages so that when an operator has that incident that is unique or somewhat out of the ordinary, that they can simply say, they can perhaps cut and paste out of the ATMS, drop it in this tool, and the tool will find all of the references within those SOPs that lead towards that certain incident circumstance. It offers citations for all of them, which page, which section they come from, and helps to give them the information they need much more quickly and frankly more comprehensively probably than what they might get otherwise, and help them as they work to get that incident managed and cleared. Again, it's just the classic, it's our own data, it's that 600 next pages. That itself is poorly organized, but it provides a much quicker way to plow through it and get to the information that is truly needed. An interesting follow from that, though, and to me this is so much of the interest with, at least our experience so far with AI, is you're trying to evaluate one use case, but you find derivative things that emerge as important and somehow unexpected. And one of the things that came out of that effort was the operator's need for a comprehensive and updated list of contacts. Who do they call? And recognizing that for any given incident, that list of contacts could change. If you think about it, take a location where we might have an incident, I-75 in Cobb County. If the incident is on I-75, well, okay. Maybe it's in unincorporated Cobb County, maybe it's in the city of Marietta. That would change your list of contacts. Yeah. If the incident is not really on I-75, but let's say it's on Interstate North Parkway, just literally on the other side of a retaining wall, the entire list of respondents and contacts changes. And so the challenges associated with that. And so even as we came up with a better way to get at the SOPs, we also came up with a better way for the operators to reach out and ensure that they're contacting or attempting to contact the right people.
That's super cool.
It is.
Anything else out of your other pilots?
The good in what I just told you is that I suspect that to the audience of this podcast, everybody gets it. And in our industry, in that traffic engineering, traffic management, ITS space, that is so clearly understood. But in GDOT's world, it's used by a relatively small group of people, it's those operators. Other pilots are inadvertently getting us deeper into all of those files that are not simply operations related, but they are project related, and helping us to understand what's in them and give us an easier, quicker, words like that, way to get information out of what might be truly millions of files. And that to me is fascinating, even as we're not done with that yet, you know?
Yeah.
So fascinating times, but as you can see, here I am talking about AI, but here I am talking about data. And we have lots to learn about our data, both the places where we expect it to be, the databases that we have and we know about, but at the same time knowing full well that there is data that are on people's hard drives and or maybe in their own network space, and the challenges associated with getting at that data, that may be information that we at the department use constantly, but it's not kept in an expected place. And so there's a whole lot we have yet to learn about data.
Okay. So I had a question that came to my mind as you were speaking about it. If it ends up being something we cannot share, we'll cut this out. So you spoke about how, some data should be private. There is data that can be public and some which cannot be public. Is it a work in progress, or what is GDOT doing in that area? Like, how are we making sure, if you have like a private vendor or someone taking this data wants to analyze, how are we making sure that privacy is still intact?
And that's so much of that is that understanding or that recognition that some data is public and some is private is generally information that is held between the relevant office, the relevant part of GDOT, and our legal team. An example of that is as we acquire right-of-way, when we are in discussions with the property owner, those discussions are private. But ultimately when that acquisition is completed and money changes hands and the various legal documents that need to change hands have done so, then that information can become public. A lot of HR records can never become public. No. And so a lot of that knowledge as to what is and what isn't and how much isn't are kept right now locally. But as we contemplate AI influenced solutions, in addition to just generally the situation that so much of the time we're wanting to look better into our own data, we're also wanting to be very cautious about our own data, and that we are very aware about the risks associated with data becoming public, certainly some data that would never become public, as I just indicated, and the recognition that data might inadvertently become public. And so one of our big concerns, big questions as we contemplate use cases is what data is involved and how will it be used, so that we are aware and understanding of any risks concerning that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I had want to talk to you about leadership, growth. As you grew in your career from different roles, how did your perspective change about leadership? And is there anything that you would advise engineers now who are trying to be emerging leaders?
It is always a common topic, a common thing that I hear so much about these days is mentors and mentoring. And I would suggest that having a mentor, or maybe more than one, are a good thing. I am a big fan of that relationship being developed somewhat organically. It could be in a work situation, a manager and an employee could be, doesn't have to be. It could involve college professors. And so I encourage the mentoring because it's an opportunity to learn from somebody who's, quote, been there and can provide some insights on their experience. Always be aware of what might be next. And I think this is hard. This is really hard. Be willing to look at opportunities that might be just a little bit out of your comfort zone. And that could be out of your technical comfort zone, but that could also be out of your comfort zone in terms of your role in terms of leading people and managing people. And that, to me, has been an important part of my career development. I have generally been willing to work with people, and that's been helpful to me. And so I've had a chance to meet and get to know and get to work with all sorts of people that are not directly in that career path that I thought I was on 35, 40 years ago, which was so traffic operations and traffic signal focused. I still have a heart for all of that work and the people that do it, but my interaction going back to when I was at Cobb County in the 1990s with maintenance people, with the guy that operated the backhoe, with the folks that drove the trucks, that knowledge, that interaction with those folks so helped me technically better understand when you contemplate use of equipment in the field. No, really, what does it take to do that? And what are the risks associated with it? What do you got to watch out for and plan for or plan around? It was so helpful in that context. That Cobb County experience, local government, and it was broader than just traffic. It was traffic and maintenance. Was so critical. I still find myself leaning on that interaction from dealing with those folks, the folks that worked maintenance for Cobb at that time. But it was, at the same time, it provided me the opportunity that as I was dealing with those folks, I was also potentially dealing with the county manager and with our elected leadership, the commissioners. And that was a fascinating time, a time of real growth for me. And it really helped set the stage for me doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah. I feel like we need one more episode to talk through all of that. I have a couple closing questions. Thank you for all that. Out of your all the experience, is there any one project or one or multiple projects or initiatives that you are most proud of?
One that I'm very proud of, because I still remember it, was back at Cobb County when we put in our first fiber optic cable, which was connecting traffic signals together. And I remember after we put in that first segment, it was a small segment, one of our technicians came in at the end of the day and said, "We're done. We're done with that fiber." And I said, "You mean you're done with hooking up one signal?" He said, "No, we're done with hooking up all of them." And he marveled at his ability to say that and claim that. I marveled with what he was just saying, because prior to that, when we were using what was called twisted pair wire, telephone wire, it would potentially take a day to hook up an intersection and get it to work at all reliably. Just the peculiarities of that type of technology. And that they could literally go and hook up what I think was a half dozen traffic signals via fiber in one day was a real game changer. And what we were getting as well, although I don't think either of us fully appreciated it at that time, was how reliable the fiber was going to be. We were not so accustomed to that. Here at GDOT, perhaps the set of things that I'm most proud of was when what we call casually HB 170 passed in 2015, which adjusted our funding for transportation. The department's response to that and our handling of that and the things that got done very quickly as a consequence of that provide benefits that extend to this day, not simply in terms of roads being better, although it does that, or did that, but the CHAMP program that we have across the street was an outcome of that. Additional growth of our signal management program, that which we now call SIGOPS, but to go from being something that was mainly Metro Atlanta focused, but to something that now covers the entire state. And I tell people with pride that Georgia's traffic signal system, notice I'm still back there, even though that's what I started in a long time ago, at 8,000 and change signals, as best as I can tell, that's the second biggest one in the US, second only to New York City. And so I'm very proud of that, but so thankful for a set of really good, really qualified people that we were able to work together and accomplish things through. It's neat being part of a good team.
When you look back, what type of legacy would you like to leave in the industry?
A legacy, I would hope that people would feel just a little bit more welcome and included, that they would see opportunities to do good things, and honestly, that they would see that this organization that is the DOT is not simply a nameless, faceless bureaucracy, but that there are really good people here.
Okay. What would you like to see from the next generation of engineers?
Even as they continue to embrace technology better, far better than I do, I would hope that they remember to keep asking the questions why. As the technology becomes more capable at developing solutions that look like good candidate solutions, that we keep asking why. Are you comfortable with what just happened, with the thing that you're looking at? Does it make sense? If it's proposing something unique, pause for a minute. Does it make sense why it's doing that? Do you agree with it? Because as I said earlier when talking about AI, you got to ultimately own the solution.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, appreciate you taking the time and talking to all that. Yeah, really appreciate everything that you do. So thank you for doing this with us. Do you have any final message for the ITE community?
Only that being part of ITE is something that I would certainly encourage and support. Get involved, join a committee. You will find that Georgia ITE is unique in how good it is. And over the course of my experiences, I've seen lots of other ITE organizations, whether that's sections or chapters or districts. And even the districts, I have been hard-pressed to find an organization that does a better job of engaging its membership and providing opportunities for folks than the Georgia Section ITE.
Okay. Yeah, with that, thanks for doing this with us. Really appreciate everything.
Thank you. Appreciate it.